What can I say? It's a subject that touches me personally, as I know there have been times in my life that I would have benefited from having such a universal basic income.
Well, the way I grew up, did not grow up remotely rich. We were poor, hurting for food all the time. Having universal basic income would help us be able to afford food, shelter, electricity, just, make childhood a little bit less tough.
That basic income is not just for people who are older and on the streets. It's for children who are in families who are struggling and don't have a bite to eat. And so with basic income this can be achieved.
When work is not possible and income is so undependable that they can put food on the table and a roof over their head.
I think essentially remove those stressful and crippling parts of being unemployed. I mean, if you don't know if you can pay the rent or if you can eat food, that is going to really affect your mental state and it's not going to contribute in any way towards your progression towards bettering yourself or your life.
In my line of work, I see far too many people who are single individuals living on the small amounts of money they receive from Alberta Works, and find that that just causes such a depth of poverty from which people just can't seem to get out of.
Basic income has the potential to end homelessness, but even if it doesn't, it can help change the stigma towards homeless individuals because they will have the money that is required to participate in society, which means that restaurants will no longer be able to go, oh, you can't come in here because homeless people hang around and never spend money.
I suppose that there is also one nice advantage potentially of basic income is that it can allow for it allows for a certain dignity for the recipient.
I would hope that there's a lot more awareness and a lot more accessibility, a lot more understanding, and that the vulnerable people will finally deserve to be cared for and taken care of in more than just a substandard poverty line existence.
The investments with government, business, society, all seeing the value of thinking long-term and thinking about democracy as the unique contributions of each citizen in their own way.
And we build on the person's challenges and address them. So there'd be a kind of a rechanneling of focus. There would be a simplification for people who, sometimes are seen as clients now. They'd probably be less client identified as clients. They'd be just folks in Alberta.
I think it's a great way to help communities. I think it's a great way to help individuals that want to pursue businesses or dreams of theirs, because it allows them to remove the need. I think it just frees up time, and I think that's a big thing that we need nowadays is more time.
Well, when are we going to have, when's AI going to be basically usurping human beings in terms of level of intelligence, level of generalized machine learning and so on? The median estimates are between 2040 and 2050, which is just a couple of decades out. And so we need to lay the framework now for what that looks like. And we can expect such rapid innovation, rapid automation, rapid disruption to the employment market that it will be the equivalent of the first industrial revolution.
People don't really appreciate what other people can do in certain situations. You might be a very kind and generous person if things are going good for you, but when things get bad, people will go to any means to, solve that situation, right? And especially if you want to stop, crime, right? I mean, how many people probably resort to crime because of the situations that they're in, right? I mean, if you can't afford food, if you can't find a place to stay, right? And those sort of social norms can just go out the window if those needs aren't being met.
And I think basic income gives a tool to make sure that the basic needs are being met of all the people in society, so that they actually can work on themselves. They can focus on growth. They can actually feel safe and secure and stable and have some of those really basic needs met that, frankly, our system is not meeting.
By virtue of being human, you're entitled to have your basic needs met and to be able to participate in your community. That's what being human means. And for so many of us, that is not possible because of poverty.
Having conversations about it is a phenomenal place to start. I think that the ability for people to pause and think about what it actually means, opposed to just making a snap judgment on it, is very vital.
Understand what a difference it makes to the lives of people who need it. That I think nobody wants to see their tax dollars wasted, but if you don't provide people with enough income for their basic necessities, they end up being in poor physical and mental health and putting quite a burden on the medical system.
Help raise awareness and help give voice, because if you can't get your voice out there, it's not going to be heard.
Be willing to invest some of our own money in it, so pay higher taxes, or at least find ways to better be more efficient with the money that we're making in the country. Because that's another thing too, is there's a lot of arguments with this that I've seen. Again, this is not necessarily my arguments, but I've seen arguments on the idea that this basic income will allow for, in essence, there's ways we can cut costs in other areas by providing this money.
And so we need to engage both conservatives and progressives, because there's appeal on both sides and there's good arguments on both sides. It could and should save government money, certainly in the long term. It should be able to streamline a host of a patchwork of existing income support programs and other poverty alleviation programs. So that should appeal to conservatives, but on the progressive side, it's about equity, fairness, human rights. It also would unleash, I truly believe, a wave of entrepreneurship. It's the most important thing we can do to encourage people to start businesses.
This is the work that I think we have to get on board for. We have enough results. We know the cost of poverty.
There's many different people in our society that really have challenges and struggles that they absolutely need help, and it says so much about a society how they treat their vulnerable, and to just be able to have that dignity of life and not having to be fighting all the time for everything, to have a quality of life where you're able to do some of the little things that a lot of people take for granted.
Even people who are opposed to basic income have a role they can play. They can bring up their concerns about basic income, such as how much it costs. For people who are in support of basic income, talk to your politicians, talk to your MLAs, your MPs, talk to people who are in poverty, and ask them how they feel a basic income might enhance their lives.
We need to start thinking about how are we going to ensure that people will continue to be prosperous, continue to benefit from economic development, but will do so in a very different way and in a very different set of social norms that are almost impossible to imagine, but we need to start imagining, and we need to start quickly.
So yes, come and join us in Basic Income Calgary and Basic Income Alberta, and